Why don't we compare the health outcomes of children that receive the vaccines to those that have never received any? About 54% of children in America now have chronic disease. That's either a neurological disorder or an autoimmune disease. One against the FDA, CDC, NIH, Health and Human Services. We've also sent our lawyers into cases where they're discussing a child that was injured by vaccines.
This is Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags.
I've been talking about this for a long time. In fact, it got me banned on a bunch of social media, or at least suspended for a while. I didn't see any growth at all on some social media because I dared say, wait, we should ask some questions about these vaccines. Well, now more information's coming out, and a lot of it's coming out because of this guy, Bigtree. He's the executive producer of an Inconvenient Study, also the CEO of ICANN, which is Informed Consent Action Network. Del, nice to meet you. How you doing?
Joe, I'm great. I want to thank you for having me on today. It's a great topic to be talking about.
You're very welcome. Everybody can go to inconvenientstudy.com and inconvenientstudy.com and go see the movie that you produced. Let's just start from the start. Were these so-called vaccines, I don't think they're vaccines, were these shots ever safe for human consumption? Were they ever studied enough to where we know that mRNA is useful in humans? Because I've heard nothing but bad things as the truth continues to come out.
Well, look, you're talking about the mRNA COVID shots, which, we all watched those rushed onto the market. But this film is about the childhood vaccine program. A lot of people want to believe that the COVID shots are the only ones that are an issue. And the truth actually is, Joe, that the COVID vaccine had better safety testing than any vaccine we've ever given our children. And that is a problem when we look at how sick our kids are. We are now looking at our children. About 54% of children in America now have chronic disease. That's either a neurological disorder or an autoimmune disease. That makes us the sickest nation of children in the world and the sickest generation of children that this country has ever seen. And that's up from just 12% chronic disease back in the 1980s. What changed? Back in the 1980s, we were giving about 10 vaccines to our children before they were 18 years old. And then and you probably know about the liability protection. We took away liability, blocked them with our government. And then that vaccine program skyrocketed to 54 vaccines. And there's multiple doses in many of them. So it's 72 doses of vaccines now by the time you're 18. And that same time, we went from 12% chronic disease to 54% chronic disease. And that's what's at the heart of this film, which is about a study that was conducted by one of the most prestigious health research centers in the world in Henry Ford Health. They did what no one else would do in a major organization, which is, if vaccines make our children safer or healthier, why don't we compare the health outcomes of children that receive the vaccines to those that have never received any? This is a challenge I made all the way back in 2016 when I first started this journey with a documentary I made, Vax. I was polling through Detroit, Michigan, and someone said to me, Del, I know the head of infectious disease at Henry Ford Health. Would you have dinner with them? Wow. Well, the movie Vax was all about vaccine injury, and it blew up all around the world. I sat down with Zervos, Dr. Zervos, his name, Dr. Marta Zervos, and the first thing he said to me, and to answer your question, Joe, was he said, I've seen your film. It's compelling. This is 2016. He said, but, there's something you've been saying online. I watched your YouTube videos. You keep saying that we've never done the proper science to prove that vaccines are safe. And he's like, I take issue with that. I'm pro-vaccine. We're one of the biggest, pro-vaccine hospitals in the world. And he said, so I sit on the biggest databases in the world, and I went to get the information so I could show you that science. And he said to me at this dinner, Del, I am shocked that I have to sit across from you and tell you you're right. I cannot believe we've never done a single placebo-based trial establishing safety of any of the childhood vaccines we give our kids. That is the beginning of this problem. And then, so now that these are on the market,
I want to stop you for a second. That was immense, what you just said. But of course, as the interviewer, I've got 37 questions now because of what you just said. It's Del Bigtree. Go to inconvenientstudy.com and inconvenientstudy.com. Go and see this movie that he produced. He's also the CEO of ICANN. So we've been told for years and years, this has been debunked now, and I want you to tell me how we debunked it, that vaccines are safe and they do not have a connection to autism or any other childhood diseases. RFK Jr. comes in. He says, yeah, we haven't really proven that at all. And I know that you probably in the movie, and I'm going to go see it tonight, I'm sure that you tell us why that's bad science too. What have they been? Why have they been saying that there's literally no connection, and that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and you are crazy by pretending there is a connection to childhood disease or the happenstance, the increased happenstance of disease in children? What are they going on, and do you debunk it in this movie?
I debunk the safety of vaccines. This study itself did not deliver the answer to autism, but what it did find was 2.5 times the rate of chronic disease overall amongst the vaccinated. There's 18,000 kids in this study at the center of this film, but 2.5 times the rate of chronic disease, 6 times the rate of neurodevelopmental disorders if you got the vaccines versus those that didn't. Wow. Nearly 6 times the rate of autoimmune disease if you got the vaccine. So it's all the issues, not just autism, it's all the issues that we're seeing skyrocketing. That is what was captured in this study. Now, Henry Ford never published this study. I believe it's because they were afraid of the results, and that's what's at the heart of this study. I went and interviewed Dr. Marcus Zervos and said, why aren't you publishing it? I took hidden cameras and recording equipment because I wanted what he said there to be known to the world. That is what's at the heart of this film. Now, to your point, they've said that there's mountains of evidence that vaccines don't cause autism. Very specifically, one of the most serious issues that people claim vaccines cause. My nonprofit has spent the last 8 years suing the government of the United States for transparency. I've won against the FDA, CDC, NIH, Health and Human Services. We've also sent our lawyers into cases where they're discussing a child that was injured by vaccines. I have a brilliant video I can show you sometimes of Catherine Edwards. She's the second highest vaccine authority in the world. We had her under oath, and we made her list all DTaP vaccine, MMR vaccine. What study do you have to prove that this didn't cause autism? And in the end, under oath, she admits none. Hepatitis B, don't have one. And she was shocked we were asking the question. The truth is, this entire thing is one of the greatest frauds of all times. They've never debunked the vaccine autism link. All they've done is yell loud and strong that it doesn't exist. Well, now the science is starting to turn on them. What I will say to you now, Joe, is they've never done any science to establish safety of the vaccines. They've never done the proper science to actually debunk all of these injuries that we've seen from vaccines. And now that these studies that are being done comparing vaccinated to unvaccinated, what we're seeing is clearly these vaccines are destroying children's lives. So, Joe, my statement now is that if you are pro-vaccine, you are actually anti-science, because what you are supporting is a product that never goes through any scientific process whatsoever. It's a religion. Anyone that questions it, we've watched it with COVID, they go after your license. They go after you like you're a heretic. This thing is being handled much more like a cult than it is like science, and that's at the heart of this film right now. And our children's lives are hanging in the balance.
Del Bigtree, executive producer at Inconvenient Study. Go to inconvenientstudy.com. Go see the movie. It's free. CEO of ICANN, Informed Consent Action Network. How did we get here? I was born in 1966. I'm healthy. I think the only vaccine they tried to give me was smallpox, but I'm naturally immune to it, so it didn't take. I don't have that circle on my shoulder. I don't remember getting any other shots at all in my upbringing. And now you're telling me there are 70 some odd shots that people are getting by the time they're 18. How did we get here? How is that allowed to happen when clearly people, I think I'm a little older than you, people of our generation didn't get all those shots? So why are we doing it now? And how did they get away with it? This is obviously about making money, but how did we get here?
Well, I mean, look, at exactly what you're saying is, how did you survive? How did your generation survive on 10, and mine, on 10 vaccines at most? Right. As you said, a lot of people only got 1 or 2. No one was paying attention. Right. Odds are you were supposed to get a smallpox vaccine, a polio vaccine. That was it. By 1966, we were only then just seeing the introduction of a measles vaccine. Odds are you didn't get that one either. You probably had the measles, and you survived like every human being on the planet that caught the measles. So this idea that measles is deadly, what has happened is the pharmaceutical industry has so much money and power now. It owns our television set. It has changed the narrative that measles can kill you. Measles, as you know, was a Brady Bunch episode back in early 1960s. There was a laugh track when the whole family got the measles. What happened that we went from we're laughing that everyone in Brady Bunch got the measles to now measles is deadly. Oh my God, you're going to cause an outbreak. It's media, it's hype, it's propaganda. And that's what's happened. We've allowed the fear machine of pharma to drive our television sets. We've let them control our government through this corruption of government. They've had control of HHS, CDC, FDA. They are the number one most powerful lobby in Washington. They're outspending oil and gas 2-1. We fight wars in the Middle East for the amount of money that is funding our government. Pharma has been spending twice that for over a decade. So what are they buying? They're buying your politicians to pass laws to force you to take and your children to take more and more vaccines. And as I said back in 1986, we took away liability. So now you're total liability protection. So you literally do not have to have a safe product. You cannot be sued if it kills you. You cannot be sued if they injure you. They can't be sued. So then we've taken this product out of the free market where there's competition, where they have to, if they get sued, they got to make a better product. This is an unnatural relationship that we have. It's the only product like it, and it's showing how powerful the lobby in Washington is. And that's what Robert Kennedy Jr. came around to break up. And by the way, I am biased. I was Robert Kennedy Jr.'s director of communications when he ran for president. Yeah. I spent 3 years with him. It's fantastic. It's a miracle that he's at HHS because he's finally bringing truth and transparency to government that's been needed for decades.
You mentioned a couple of times that they have no liability. We can't sue them. Why? Who was the guy or the gal or the body of people that said, let's make pharma unsuable, and then they can literally kill people with their medicines or their vaccines or whatever, and nobody can go after them. I know with the mRNA vaccines, you can't do anything. They were EUA, so allegedly we were making our own decision to take them, although everybody was forced to take them. Basically, I didn't take it, but 80% of Americans did. When it comes to these vaccines, you've got the CDC and everybody else putting it on a schedule that they really strongly recommend all the kids get. But if you take it and you see some chronic disease in your family, you can't sue anybody. If there's a death, and there are a lot of documented deaths now through VAERS because of the current so-called vaccines, why can't you sue? Whose dumb idea was it to let them off the hook when it comes to having a product that doesn't hurt us?
This happened in 1986. It was called the Vaccine Injury Compensation Act of 1986. Essentially, the pharmaceutical industry went to Ronald Reagan and they blackmailed him. They said, look, we are losing, and this is in court documents. They said, we are losing so much money from death and injury cases in court, we cannot make a profit. So either you protect us from liability on these vaccines, or we're going to stop making them. And wow. That was the threat they made to Ronald Reagan. He hated the idea. He recognized, as you just pointed out, we're going to give the pharmaceutical industry that pays out billions of dollars, often in lawsuits because they lied about the safety of a drug. We're going to give this industry that doesn't seem to care about humanity or people a total free ride. Protection so they can never be sued in one area of products. And by the way, the only product we know of that you're forced to take in order to go to school, so you're forced to take it by the government, but if it injures you, you're on your own, buddy, because you can't sue the manufacturer and no one's going to make a safer product. This is just one of the worst situations we've ever seen. And the health of our children, as I pointed out, is showing us that. But essentially, Ronald Reagan said, I'm going to give in. I understand why. He's worried about a biological weapon attack at some point. And if that happens, we got to have vaccine makers able to ramp up a vaccine overnight, sort of like what we watched with Warp Speed. It turned out terrible. It's never a great idea to rush a pharmaceutical product on the market, but that was the dream. And you saw it realized. That was the dream Ronald Reagan had, and he said that dream is not possible. We'll never be able to protect ourselves if this industry shuts down in America. So that is how he excused it for himself. But it has obviously made one of the worst situations we've ever seen. It's created a gold rush for a product line and for an industry we should never trust. And now we are sitting with 10 vaccines being given to a baby at one time with no safety proving that you could ever do that. And I want to point out there's a lot changing on this conversation. Not only is my movie, An Inconvenient Study, lay all this out in a way it's never been seen before, and this study is creating a scientific debate literally around the world. I was just talking to an Australian senator that had this debate about this Henry Ford study with his health department. But ultimately, now we just had this week the first SIDS case, sudden infant death syndrome, that was paid out by the vaccine court. So I said you can't sue the manufacturer, but you now go to a pseudo kangaroo court that's run by the government of the United States. Well, a SIDS case just won, proving that the encephalopathy, the brain swelling that happened in an 11-week-old baby that was given 10 vaccines, 5 hours later, they were found blue, with their lips blue, dead in their crib. Wow. We've known for years it's vaccines that are doing this, but no one seemed to care. So not only now do we have precedents showing vaccines can now settle and prove SIDS, you have a law in Florida. Just Florida's changing, as you're probably watching Joe Latipo and the rest of the work that's being done there. They have a law they're trying to pass that says if a baby dies of SIDS, then it is going to be mandatory for the coroner or the doctor or whoever's handling that case to immediately report what was the last vaccines and when they got them. Obviously, you think this should have been done from the beginning. It's amazing you need a law, but this shows all the focus now is on vaccines. The world is looking at vaccines. The study of vaccinated versus unvaccinated are showing us that the vaccinated are sicker. These babies look like they're dying. I'm telling you, the genie is out of the bottle. We're never going back to the dark ages where we just blindly walk around going, oh, vaccines are safe and effective. Vaccines are safe and effective. Those days are over, Joe. We're in a whole new frontier right now.
Del Bigtree, executive producer at Inconvenient Study. Go to aninconvenientstudy.com. I want to ask you what we do about the liability situation. It does make sense why Reagan went that way, and you explained it very well. But there's got to be some way to keep them accountable. They literally have no accountability. None. Zero. Zip. And it's a $1 trillion industry. What do we do? Can we have an act of Congress, get rid of that loss of liability and maybe put it on a certain level, maybe a certain percentage, Del, I'm confused as to why there's an entire corporation, not a corporation, an entire movement on planet Earth by Pfizer and Moderna and just down the list, then they have no worries killing people with their drugs. Again, we know from theirs that people died from the mRNA shots. The Department of Defense actually tried to hide that early on in the pandemic. So we know that there are vax injuries. They are documented. We have to turn the corner, but I get it. Then if they stop making vaccines at all, we have a biohazard. That could be an issue. If you had the button to fix this liability situation, what would that button do? How do you fix it?
Look, I would put liability right back on the industry. Back in 1986, vaccines were cheap. As we said, you only had 3 or 4 of them. It wasn't a big deal. It was like measles. It was polio. But now with all of these chickenpox vaccines and RSV vaccines, the coronavirus vaccine made the industry over $100 billion.
Wow.
So as far as I'm concerned, when they say, well, vaccine injury is 1 in a million, it's total baloney. That is not true. But I would say this, look, if it's 1 in a million and you're making $100 billion, certainly you can afford the lawsuits that are going to come your way.
Good point.
They're lying about this. We should put liability back on the manufacturer, but it'd be very difficult to do because as you just stated, it was an act of Congress. This is not, we've looked at it. When I was working with Bobby, when he looked like he was going to team up with President Trump, we said, what can we do here? Putting liability back would right the ship. You would let the free market decide. I'm telling you, they would pull most of these vaccines right off the market if they were liable because they know they're destroying lives. But your issue is that it cannot be an executive order. We look deep into this. A president can't override a congressional, decision or order. It would have to have another congressional vote. I don't think you have enough Democrats and Republicans ready to make that decision. But what Robert Kennedy Jr. is doing is very interesting. If you look at with the coronavirus vaccine for children especially, they've moved it to shared decision making, which is it's no longer mandated on you. We're saying this is a decision you should make with your doctor. Now, that's great for the coronavirus. Coronavirus has one more step beyond the 1986 Act protection. It has the PrEP Act, which is a little different. As you pointed out, when we rushed it onto the market with the emergency use authorization, it got an extra protection. But what you're about to see is a conversation about the hepatitis B vaccine that's happening at the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. I believe they're going to move the Hep B to shared decision-making also. They may even look at the DTaP vaccine and others, but the Hep B is really on the chopping block because it makes no sense. Why are we giving a sexually transmitted disease vaccine to a day 1 old baby? You're only going to get this disease if you're sharing heroin needles or sleeping with prostitutes. So it makes no sense that we're mandating this on a day 1 old baby. So what's going to happen, I believe you're going to watch in the next few weeks, the next meeting at ACIP, they're going to move that to shared decision-making. Well, guess what? Now, I believe the law shows that it's being on the recommended childhood schedule, that when the CDC says this is recommended by the CDC, that's when it gets its liability protection. If Bobby and ACIP decide to take it out of a recommendation and move it to shared decision-making, I believe now it will be vulnerable to lawsuits. So this is sort of a different way, using the forces that they have to start moving these vaccines out of that protected category and saying, since it's an option, you can now sue if it injures you. And that is going to transform this conversation overnight as that starts happening.
Well, that's got to happen. It does have to happen because it's going to make them put out better products anyway. It's going to also, as you said, make them take away what they know is harming people, but they have no worry about it because there's no liabilities. Del Bigtree, executive producer and Inconvenient Study. Go to aninconvenientstudy.com. Go see the movie now. Also CEO of ICANN. You've mentioned the world a few times. How does our rate of these catastrophic diseases or these you were using a term earlier where we have these things happening over and over at higher rates in this country. How does our rate compare to the Nordic countries that I know have almost shut down any sort of immunization at all, any sort of vaccinations at all? How does it compare to France? How does it compare to Italy? Us versus the world. Is our rate of these diseases way higher than them, or is everybody seeing this?
Yes. No, it's the highest in the world. We have the highest rate of autoimmune disease. We have the highest rate of neurological disorders in America versus everywhere else in the world. We're worse than Africa. We're worse than India. We are definitely worse than the Nordic countries. We are getting 72 vaccines. I don't know the exact number, but when you look at the Swedish schedule, which is something I think that our government officials are looking at, why is fully vaccinated in Sweden somewhere around 20-something vaccines instead of the 50-something that we're taking?
Right.
Why are they doing fine? Why are they not having measles outbreaks? Why do we need to be doing twice the vaccinating that Sweden's doing? And when you look at their health records, they're so much healthier than we are.
Yeah.
And so this is the conversation we're demanding. This is what I think this film, an Inconvenient Study, this is the tool, because what it shows you is, there has been, and this is what I want to make clear, one retrospective study like this study at the center of an Inconvenient Study doesn't answer the question for you. It's a retrospective study. It has limitations. But this is about the fifth study that has compared vaccinated to unvaccinated. And every single one of these, when they make that comparison, shows that the vaccinated are sicker. Henry Ford happens to be a study that I challenged them to do to prove us wrong, to prove all those other studies wrong. And so, as you probably know, Joe, there's science. And most of science right now, they're saying, is not reproducible. More than 50% of the science that is published in major, online journals, medical journals, the publishers are coming forward and saying, hey, you can't trust us. More than half these studies are not reproducible, which means it's bunk science. It's crap. Well, guess what? This is like the fifth study that is done like this. And this time it was done by our detractors, trying to prove us wrong, and they came up with the same results. The vaccinated are sicker. I'm telling you, Joe, published or unpublished, or whatever Henry Ford has to say about this study, we are now seeing a reproducible event. In fact, I will make this statement. Not a single major medical institution in the world has been able to do a comparative study that looked at the health outcomes of vaccinated versus unvaccinated and showed that the vaccinated are actually healthier. Why can't they do that? Why is there not a single country in the world able to produce that study? Wasn't that the entire point of the vaccine program, to make our kids healthier? We got to hear about the Amish don't have any autism, that the Amish never get vaccinated, they don't have allergies. What's going on there? Well, this Henry Ford study did that. It had 2,000 unvaccinated kids in the study and nearly 16,000 vaccinated. And when they compared the health outcomes, it was just horrible. At the end of 10 years, they said when they looked at the timeline, if you were vaccinated, the vaccinated 57% rate of chronic disease if you're vaccinated. The unvaccinated, 17% had chronic disease.
Wow.
Those are astronomical numbers. And frankly, so big, it's hard to refute. And it is creating a dialogue around the world that should have happened decades ago. But thank God it's happening now. Thank God it's happening while we got Robert Kennedy Jr. and HHS able to do something. Thank God it's happening while we have a president that is willing to say, I want to look at the vaccine program. I want to look at it all. I want to look at the plastics. I want to look at the forever chemicals. I want to look at the fluoride in the water. I mean, my God, finally. And I grew up a Democrat. I grew up a Democrat, an environmentalist from Boulder, Colorado. You know what I mean? It used to be us that were fighting for clean water, air, and food. And now it's the Republican Party. It's an amazing moment in American history and one of the most important we're ever going to watch. This combination of President Trump And Robert Kennedy Jr. is accomplishing more than anything we've ever seen in a regulatory agency. Look at what he's done. Look what Robert Kennedy Jr. has done. He's already wiped out all the petroleum dyes that's in the cereals and the food that our kids have been eating. We've been trying to get that done for decades. He's finally done it. He's just removed all the lead and the arsenic and the heavy metals that are in the baby food products and in formulas. Huge. Why did no other HHS secretary ever do that? He's come forward with a drug called leucovorin that's actually helping kids that are autistic that can't speak. They're now speaking again. Huge. Never been done before. And now he's got the new advisory committee on immunization practices asking the right questions. Why are we giving a hepatitis B vaccine on day one of life? Have we ever studied giving 10 vaccines to an 11-week-old baby? No, we haven't. Let's do those studies now. The world is changing, Joe, in a really, really good way. And I'm just so honored to be alive during this administration right now.
Yeah, me too. CEO of ICANN, Informed Consent Action Network. It is Del Bigtree. Go check out his movie. And inconvenientstudy.com is where you can go and see it. It is free. Do you have an opinion on why it is that we have more chronic disease that's caused by, it looks like, from these studies, all these medicines that we're taking? And let me ask you in a better way. Is there some reason, in your opinion, from these studies, so it's an informed opinion, why the government would want to keep us fat and out of shape and chronically ill and fatigued? Is this all about money? Is this about power and control over weak people? Why don't they want us to be healthy? I don't get it.
I don't get that either. It really, I don't think they know, right? I don't think our senators and our assembly members, I talk to them all the time. I talk to them about this stuff. And as they look at the studies and the evidence I'm showing, their jaw is, on the table. Now, of course, I leave the office and pharma sends in 5 lobbyists behind me to say, don't listen to Del Bigtree. Don't listen to Robert Kennedy Jr. That's all lies. But they can't explain why our kids are so sick. They can't figure it out. And one of the things you're pointing to, what would be the mechanism, right? Why would it be vaccines that's causing autoimmune disease? People say to me, Joe, how do you know it's not the fluoride in our water? How do you know it's not the glyphosate and the pesticides that are sprayed over 90% of our crops? How do you know it's not the hormones that are injected into our beef? How do you know it's not the plastics or the forever chemicals? By the way, all of these things came into our environment right about the same time, early 1990s. And that's where you see autism and all of the other autoimmune diseases skyrocketing. But here's what I'll say, Joe. Look, first of all, Robert Kennedy Jr. is putting every one of those things on the chopping block. There's no one left out. He's not owned by any chemical company, any pharmaceutical company, any water company, any energy company. This is a lawyer that's been suing all those companies his whole life. So now he's there to try and fight for the American people. So we're going to look at all of those issues, which is great. And we're probably going to find out it's a combination of many of these things. But let's make it clear. Every one of those products, the problem is we're said to be safe and we're put into our marketplace by the regulatory agencies of the United States of America, the HHS, FDA, CDC, NIH. They told us it was safe and now we're being poisoned. So whatever the culprit ends up being for this diabolical condition we find ourselves in, the blood is on the hands of our own government that has done this to us and our regulatory agencies. Lastly, though, if we're going to talk about an autoimmune disease crisis, which means, our immune systems are dysregulated is how they refer to it in science. It's confused. Our immune systems are now attacking our own cells in our own body. It's attacking our pancreas. We have diabetes. It's attacking the sheath around our muscles. We have multiple sclerosis. It's attacking our own proteins, our own body. Something's gone tragically wrong. Why is our immune system suddenly so confused? Well, I haven't thought. I'm just a reporter. I'm not a medical, expert. But shouldn't we, if the entire issue that is making our kids sick is immune dysregulation, shouldn't we maybe look at the one product of all of these that is designed to alter your immune system for life? That's what vaccines do. Is it that shocking that when you ask someone on the street, how's the vaccine work? They'll say, well, I don't know. I guess they kill a virus or they make it less dangerous so that I can have it injected into me and it tricks my immune system into thinking it's had a disease. Great. Let's go with that definition. So we're not just tricking your immune system one time or 10 times or 20 times or 50 times, 72 times over the course of 18 years, we are tricking the immune systems of our children to believe it's gone through a disease. And now we're shocked and can't figure out why our immune systems are so confused it's attacking our own bodies. I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist, Joe. I think we need scrutiny on this product like we've never seen it before.
Well, I want to go back to mRNA because I know that the movie's not about that. I get it. But what you just said is directly related to mRNA. mRNA makes your body think that not only do you have COVID, but you've got it constantly and it never gets rid of it. And then your body keeps on attacking and attacking and attacking. Now you're actually seeing people like Peter McCullough come up with different ways to use supplements to start cleaning that stuff out, or else your body never stops attacking the disease it's not killing. So I almost think mRNA, these stupid so-called vaccines that we had recently, they're the ones that are highlighting that what you're showing us is really true. That mRNA never leaves. Do you know from the studies that you're reporting in this movie and inconvenientstudy.com, do you know that the vaccines that we all got as kids ever leave? Do we still have that crap in our bodies as we become adults? Do we have any idea when it goes away?
I think there's serious questions about that, but I would say the one thing, many of these older vaccines, they do tend to leave the body. Now, did they create enough immunity that it actually lasts or works for you? Those are huge questions.
Right.
There are issues with vaccines. For instance, the pertussis vaccine in DTaP, diphtheria, tetanus, acellular pertussis, the vaccine doesn't stop transmission, which is something I've been trying to explain for decades, but now everyone understands after watching what happened with coronavirus.
Yes.
We had a vaccine that could not stop transmission. Therefore, is it really a vaccine?
No.
Wasn't the entire point of this product to keep me from infecting my neighbor? Isn't that why you guilted the hell out of me and told me I couldn't leave my house without being vaccinated so that I would protect my neighbor? And if I dared to not get the vaccine, I wasn't doing the right thing. All of that bullcrap propaganda. But let's look at mRNA now that you're asking, because I know a lot about that too. This is the most dangerous technology that was ever created and ever rushed on the market. The simplest way to think about it is usually a vaccine looks at the, sort of the least dangerous part of the virus, right? I need to kill the virus, but I can shoot it in the calf, or I can shoot it in the head, I can shoot it in the heart. All I need to do is wound that virus so that my body takes it out. Well, normally, when we're going to inject the virus into you, we try to inject the least dangerous part of it, right? So I always act like, let's say the virus is like a tank and it's got the howitzer on it, and then it's got the tracks, the wheels. We're going to make the vaccine attack the wheels of the tank, because should the vaccine not work right and somehow it starts proliferating inside of my body, I want a bunch of track wheels. I don't want howitzers with a deadly weapon killing me, okay? Well, the COVID vaccine is the first vaccine we've ever seen where the worst part, the bioweapon, the spike protein, is what they made the vaccine do. Right. And it was the first time where we're not injecting one little spike protein in you and hoping that your immune system attacks it, or a couple hundred or so. No, they had a genius new idea. We're going to turn the cells of your body into a spike protein manufacturing plant. And so this is what was new about mRNA. It wasn't a protein coming in from the outside and our body, immune system attacks it. No, this was a message, basically a computer code that taught our cells to start manufacturing this deadly bioweapon inside of our body. And then once it started doing that, then it inspires our immune system. Oh my God, my own cells are creating a bioweapon. Let me attack my own cells.
Right.
That's what mRNA is doing. It's madness. And so, it's great. I'm sure you may have interviewed Brett Weinstein, points out how dangerous this is. The other problem, other than it just being a spike protein, is the fatty lipid. The way this vaccine, essentially, that computer code is wrapped in what we call a fatty lipid. That was designed by drug companies to cross the blood-brain barrier. They were having trouble getting chemotherapy to the brains of brain cancer patients. Right. So they created this new thing called a fatty lipid that could slip through your bloodstream and get into your brain. So that's how this vaccine was made. Another massive mistake. Why? Well, they were telling us, the vaccine is just going to stay in your lung. That
was a lie.
Days. Total lie. No, because how we made it, we used the products designed to go straight to your brain, straight to your liver, straight to your organs. And that's what we started seeing in these studies. This vaccine is depositing this deadly bioweapon inside your organs, and worst of all, inside your heart, which has never happened with a vaccine. And so now our immune systems our heart muscles are cranking out this deadly bioweapon. And so our immune systems are now attacking our heart. And that is causing myocarditis, pericarditis. It's injuring the hearts of our children. This is the worst product ever made. I hope it was accidental that it was this bad a problem. But boy, when the people that make it keep telling you how interested they are in reducing the population of the world,
they do.
You got to think twice, man.
Well, without a doubt, I think it was about culling the herd. That's my opinion. At the end of the day, they had to know this because the guy that created it, Malone, and I've had him on many times, he knew it goes everywhere once you inject it. McCullough knew that it goes everywhere. Urso knew that it goes everywhere. Yeah. I've interviewed so many people over the past 5 years who all said, of course we knew this. No, it doesn't stay in your shoulder. No, it doesn't go just to your lungs. It goes to your ovaries to cause problems there. It goes to your testicles, cause problems there. And your heart, we're seeing some of the most fit people on the planet drop dead after getting the vaccine. It's Del Bigtree. Go and check out this movie at inconvenientstudy.com. Let me finish with this. I'm online friends with, I've never met her, but I'm online friends with Jenny McCarthy. She comes into my lives. We follow each other and everything else. Somebody like that, putting her career on the line to tell the truth about her experience with vaccines, that's got to mean a lot. I mean, that's pretty courageous, is it not?
It is so courageous. She was at the premiere. We won the Malibu Film Festival just about 3 weeks ago with an Inconvenient Study. She was there. Esai Morales, the actor, was there. There's a lot of actors support this. But I stood on that stage and I said this. Look, at this point, this conversation around the dangers of vaccines, we have, and COVID really helped with this. It's an unfortunate disaster that happened, but it woke up so many people. As you pointed out, we've got Dr. Robert Malone. We'll stand next to Peter McCullough. We'll stand next to, Pierre Corey and Richard Urso, and the list goes on, and Del Bigtree and Robert Kennedy Jr. Yes. We have an army of people that are standing and telling this truth, including almost every podcaster alive. When Jenny did it, she was all alone. She came out all alone, went on the television, said, this thing just destroyed my kid's life. She's done a brilliant job recovering him, by the way. Beautiful, beautiful kid. Yes. She was able to bring him back and, help him speak. But she got ridiculed and attacked because she was all by herself. She is a hero. We are not here. The work that I've done and what we've achieved is built on the shoulders of giants like Jenny McCarthy. I hope and I believe she will go down in history as really probably the Joan of Arc of this vaccine issue.
I said I would finish with that, and I see you're getting emotional. I love it. Jenny is a great person. She actually, after Charlie Kirk was killed, she came into one of my lives on TikTok and said, I just wanted to go and find some place where I could just hear the truth and not be filled with all this garbage. She's been really out in front of this, and she put her career on the line. And she's bounced back incredibly. But I do want to finish with this. One of my daughters, I've got 5, is pregnant. Other people who watch and listen to me are pregnant. You've got people who are friends of mine in my family circle that are pregnant, and they really want to know, should they reconsider the vaccinations that the child will probably get as it's born? Do we have enough information that says you probably should hold off and wait for better advice?
I think you have to watch an Inconvenient Study, and at the end I say this is a choice that you have to make. But here's what we now know is the truth. Not a single vaccine that you're about to give that brand new baby, worst of all, the hepatitis B they don't even need, ever went through a double-blind long-term safety trial. We don't know what it does to the babies. And all we know is the health outcomes of our children is getting worse and worse and worse. And the pharmaceutical industry will say to you, look, we don't have to do those studies now. We have 50 years of using them that proves their safety. I'm like, oh, really? Oh, so you're going to point to the health of our children as evidence that these are safe? I just pointed out this is the sickest generation of children we've ever seen in this country. This is the sickest nation of children in the industrialized world. 75% of American children are not healthy enough to pass the test to get into our military. We're about to see the end of American exceptionalism, and you're pointing to that as your evidence of this. Well, hold on. You can't blame vaccines for that. I think you can't have it both ways. Either you better start doing some science, but if you're going to point to the health of our children as your evidence that this product has worked, this movie proves that. Multiple studies. Peter McCullough has a brand new study showing that vaccines are causing autism. The SIDS, case, all of this now is turning. I would say to parents, look, you have to make this very difficult decision for yourself. You need to get as much information as you can. Start by watching films like An Inconvenient Study. Ask your doctor what they think about it. Ask why They can't show you a study anywhere in the world that shows that the vaccinated are healthier and then say, do I need to rush into this? Is my baby going to have a sexually transmitted disease in the next few weeks or months? Why don't I walk out of this hospital and take some time? Let me breastfeed this child and give them the greatest nutrients and the greatest protections that existed that God gave us. And remember, we were created in the image and likeness of God. We are made perfect, not sick.
Yeah.
Pharmaceutical has changed the religion to you are a sick being and your child is sick and a danger to everyone else. It's not true. There are millions of unvaccinated people, including my children, and every chiropractor you'll meet, go see their children and see why they're making that decision.
Del Bigtree, I'm glad you went there, and I appreciate your answer. Executive producer at Inconvenient Study. Go to inconvenientstudy.com. Go watch this movie. It's free. He's also the CEO of Informed Consent Action Network. Thanks a million for coming on. Great to meet you, and let's do it again, okay?
I look forward to it, Joe. Take care.
I appreciate you. That's it for Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags for this time. Another one to drop very soon.